Hi, Rachit. So cool. So I think we'll just get started and focus on what we have planned today for you guys. So good morning again. Our webinar today is focused on a very interesting story of one of our students, Sai Saikar, who is an MBA candidate from HKUST. We are going to talk about his journey from GMAT to, what he has today. And we'll focus on every aspect of his profile. We'll focus on how his journey has been. So before we get started, let me just introduce myself. I'm Shrikala. I'm one of the co-founders of Crackverbal. And I have with me Shrikar. So Shrikar, if you could just introduce yourself and then we'll begin our discussion.
Sure. Thank you very much, Shrikala. Hello, everyone. Hope you guys are keeping yourselves safe in these unfortunate times. So, yeah, as Shrikala mentioned, I'm Shrikar, originally from Chennai, and currently pursuing my MBA in Hong Kong at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. So that's a brief background about me.
Thank you, Shrikar. So, Shrikar, before we get started on the MBA thing, if you could just give us a brief background about yourself and how did this whole thing start? So, tell us a little bit about your pre-MBA life, and
Sure.
then I'll ask you questions around it so that it's more because I know a lot of students who keep asking us questions. So, I want to make sure that this session is more towards people who are aspiring for an MBA this year,
Right.
and we'll try to make sure that we answer their questions too. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your pre-MBA life and how was that and what did you do?
Definitely. So, I'm an engineering graduated as an electronics and communication engineer from Sri Venkateswara College of Engineering in Chennai. Graduated in 2015, and through campus placement, I happened to land a job with Ernst and Young. But I must say that actually happened by accident. It was never planned, never planned to actually get into the consulting field or one of the big four firms. It just happened by accident, and I had initially joined their IT risk and advisory services, where we used to do a lot of IT auditings, systems, compliance reviews, and all of that pretty technical job. And I was there with that unit for about 1.5 to 2 years. And somewhere I kind of felt, I reached the tipping point in terms of learning, or rather, I really didn't, kind of enjoy my journey anymore with that unit, with the kind of work that I was doing. So that is when I kind of started reading more about the business perspectives of how organizations work, how companies work, how strategies formulated, and that's when I thought I should kind of move to the strategy consulting unit of EY, and then through an internal job posting that happened, I moved to the strategy consulting unit of EY. It's called EY Parthanan. This happened in 2017, and I was with that unit for about close to 2 years. And somewhere in the end of 2017 or early 2018, just like millions of other engineers around the world, the MBA bug bit me as well. And I thought, it is time I kind of expand my academic knowledge to understand more about, the consulting space. So that is when I thought, I should pursue an MBA. And and that's when I approached Crackverbal, gave the GMAT, and Asia was one of my primary kind of criteria for pursuing an MBA. So that is how I kind of shortlisted HKUST and finally managed to get into it.
Right. So, Shrikar, a little bit more about your pre-MBA story. So,
Right.
you mentioned that you joined EY as a risk analyst, and then you moved
That's
into
right.
the strategy.
That's right.
So, how easy is that shift, or was that based on your performance in the last 2 years of performance in the role that you were working on, or how did that transition happen? Because in a company like EY, right, how easy or difficult is for you to get into a strategy arm of that particular company. So how did that transition happen?
That's a good question, Shrikala. It's definitely not an easy thing to do, but yes, totally based on my 1.5 to 2 years performance in the risk advisory services, along with, of course, a couple of rounds of interview through, one with a senior manager and one with a partner, and that is how I managed to get it. And it definitely is not easy because they test you on a lot of business concepts, a lot of case interviews and stuff. So, I had actually prepared myself, before reaching out to the partner or the manager, or, before appearing for any interview. So, if anyone is kind of trying to do that, I would definitely say you need to build up your knowledge, do a lot of case practice, and that is when you kind of reach out to people and start appearing for interviews.
Right, right. So, was there a prerequisite that they had for this kind of a role, or it was more like you reaching out to them and then applying for that particular role?
Honestly, it was more of me reaching out to them. Yes, there was one particular slot available in Delhi. So I had actually joined the Chennai office first, right after graduation. But in the strategy arm of the unit, there was one slot, one associate consultant that they needed in the Delhi office.
Hmm.
And yes, that's how it happened. I then reached out to them, and through the internal job posting, it happened.
Right. So, what was that point where you felt that you really needed to do an MBA? So, you spent some time in the strategy wing also.
Right.
So, was there a point where, you were into some project and you realized that, I need an MBA now? It's the right time for you to pursue something like this. So, what was that point? Like you mentioned tipping point, right? So, I wanted to
Right.
understand what was that point, and more for people who are in a similar situation. When do they actually realize that, yeah, now is, because is years of experience the important part, or is what you are working on the important part? So what exactly is that point that you assess that, okay, now is a good time to pursue something like this?
Sure. It definitely is not of course, yes, years of experience does matter to an extent, but I would say it's the kind of projects that you're working on. So when I first joined the strategy arm in 2017, I'd worked on, in the first about 5 to 6 months, I'd worked on about two projects, two to three projects, two small, big ones and one small one.
Mhm.
And, I kind of realized that, I'm definitely not from a finance background, I'm an engineer, right? But a lot of your strategy projects involve the financial bit as well. You got to build models, you got to do a lot of business models and stuff. So that was one, a catalyst, I would say, to kind of drive me towards the MBA journey, because I felt an academic learning is definitely required, not just from a financial perspective, but also for me to understand, how, come on, when you're kind of formulating a strategy for a company, be it some sort of a market entry strategy, or you're trying to help the client expand, in some sort of a growth strategy, right? You would need different elements. You would need to understand the different elements, the people aspect, the operations aspect, the financial aspect, sales, marketing. So a lot of different aspects are required. You need to understand these as a consultant for you to give some sort of solid recommendations to the client. So I felt somewhere, yes, it was a pretty good learning, but in those three projects in about 6 to 7 months, but I felt that coupled with a solid academic learning experience would help me, deliver better at my work. So it was about 6 to 7 months into, these projects, and about three projects into the thing, I felt, I needed a strong academic learning to kind of move forward and to deliver better at my work.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So when you actually plan doing an MBA, what was the kind of research you believe was is very important to do? One aspect obviously is GMAT. So, how did you start? Like, what was your beginning of, okay, now I'm ready and now I have to focus on something, on planning my MBA journey?
Definitely, GMAT was the beginning. I had to devote about 2 to 2.5 months completely to the GMAT preparation. It was a pretty intense and a rigorous preparation. Yes, that's a starting point. And next, coming to research, I always wanted to be, or rather pursue my MBA in a school in Asia, right? Because we see the macroeconomic situation, it's completely moving towards Asia from the West. A lot of the markets, the Southeast Asian markets here are opening up. And for me to continue my journey in the consulting space, I realized through research that there's like tremendous opportunities here in this part of the world. So, my research included what schools, would be best for consulting. Of course, first I had shortlisted Asia would be my destination. And then coming to the schools, which schools offer me the best consulting opportunities. And another important criteria for me was, having a small classroom. HKUST is one of the very few top international business schools which actually has a very small classroom. We just have about 100 to 110 students every year. That's the average. Because the personalized attention that you get, the network you build, the stronger network that you build, with a smaller cohort was really important to me. And apart from that, the diverse mix of students, the international mix that a university offers, the program offers, and yeah, definitely a destination which is closer to the Southeast Asian and the Chinese economies is very important to me. So these were the different criteria that kind of made me decide that okay, HKUST is the place where I should be pursuing my MBA.
Right. So typically, once you take your GMAT, right? So
Right.
from GMAT to your applications, in your view, since you've been there, done that, right? In
Right.
your view, how much time should a candidate, someone spend in terms of researching on schools? And what are the key aspects of even researching on schools? We'll get to the second. Ask you the second part of the question. After you answer this part. So first is, what are the key aspects of researching on the kind of schools you should apply to?
Sure. Okay, first let me answer the first part of your question in the time. So as I said, well, again, Shrikala, it depends on every individual. There could be some people, who in parallel to their work would just need about a month of GMAT preparation and can still get a killer score.
Mm.
It all boils down to the individual, but I would say, about 2 to 2.5 months of solid dedicated preparation for GMAT is required. And then once you get your score and once you've decided that you want to apply it in the coming academic year, I would say start pretty early, around the months of June, July, in terms of researching, because typically every B school out there starts round one in about September, October. That's the time frame, and goes on until May to June. I mean, now with the whole Corona thing, it's extended to till about June.
Yeah.
But September, October is what you should be targeting. And I would recommend students that they apply in round one and round two itself. Do not wait till round three or four, because that's when the colleges don't say that, but most of the the interest tends to get diluted even for the B schools. So
Mm.
R1 and R2 is where I would suggest candidates kind of focus. So start researching right from June, July. Start talking to a lot of people, not just web research. You need to reach out to a lot of people. Reach out to the current students who are actually pursuing the study in that particular year, and also reach out to the alumni base.
Mm.
Find out what are the niche aspects, what are the different aspects. You have a particular goal in your mind. You want to get into you want to be a finance professional, you want to get into consulting, you want to get into marketing post MBA, right? So you have your own thing. So reach out to people who are actually in that particular stream of specialization
Mm.
in the university of your choice or your interest.
Mm.
Reach out to them extensively, start talking to them, ask what are the niche aspects of the university, what are the kind of different programs. Is it a mix and match sort of a thing that the university is offering, or is it just the conventional way of specialization that it's offering? So start reaching out, spend at least 2 to 3 months of web research, and also reaching out to people, and then prepare a solid base of all your research points, have your schools shortlisted, and then go ahead with the applications starting September and October.
Right. So your key point of listing out the schools that you wanted to apply to was one, geography. So you were very clear that Asia is something you want to apply to.
Exactly. I was very clear right from day one that I wanted to pursue it in Asia. That
Okay.
is definitely number one. And two, I wanted to continue in the consulting space.
Right.
So for me, the next most important criterion was which school offers the best post MBA consulting opportunities. Which economy has it, which geography has it,
Right.
and three, definitely a smaller cohort for
What's
better
that?
interaction. More personalized attention. Yes.
Right, right. So, in terms of the whole application journey, also, what are your views on what are the key things students should look for if they are looking for someone as a mentor, or if what are the key things they have to focus on when they are actually applying to a school? Because a lot of students ask us that, okay, what is the formula to getting into the school, right? And I always tell them that there is no formula to it, right? Otherwise, I
Absolutely.
would be the first one to give that formula.
Exactly. No
It
formula
will only help
whatsoever. Correct.
you, right? So what are the key things that especially when they're looking at applications? Because now is a good time for people to either get started with their GMAT preparation, or if they've taken their GMAT, start applying also, or thinking of
Absolutely.
starting their research on applying. What are the key things that they should know when they're actually applying to schools, and what are the do's and don'ts, or even realistic expectations from how they should plan their whole application process?
Sure. So, okay. There is one small mantra to it while you're applying, while you're writing your essays. I would say just be yourself and be honest. I know, all of us tend to bluff a lot, that I've done this, I've done that. And trust me, the application committee, the academic committee can see through all the BS that we write.
Yeah.
And, that is, one of the major reasons for a lot of rejections in the B schools. So just be yourself, be honest. That is the mantra. And yeah, coming to applications, I would say definitely Crack Verbal has got some pretty great mentors. I myself have interacted with two of them, and great support. I would say. But yeah, mentor is something which again can be decided at a later stage. But in terms of applications, I would say yes, GMAT is very important. Getting a 720, a 730, 740 is really important, but that is just not it. The most important component of your applications is your essays. How truthful you are and how honest you are in your essays is what matters. And even in the essays, right, uh, try to kind of, I mean, not just honesty, try to kind of give them a multifaceted, view of what you are as a candidate, not just your academic qualifications or not just, the kind of achievements or the awards you've received at work, but what have you done apart from that, right? Why are you a good fit for the college, right? So when you're researching about the university of choice, try to read about what are the kind of values, what are the kind of things that the university imbibes, right? So try to match. I mean, if not exactly match, but yeah, try to see why you would be a good fit in terms of that, right? So be very honest in your essays and try to give a multifaceted view of your personality in those essays.
Right, right.
Definitely, and after the essays, I think it's about the other rigmarole in terms of applying. How quickly you apply. If you're one of the first few to apply, and all those other things. So,
Right, right.
yeah,
Awesome. So, post which, you already mentioned about choosing, HKUST. Tell us a little bit more about the HKUST journey, from you started your MBA over there. Were there any prerequisites that you need to have? And, right from the time where you submitted your applications to the interview stage, what was the timeline? So, how did that happen, and how long did that take?
sure. So I had applied in round two. That was in sometime in mid-December,
Hmm.
and I had got an interview call in the second week of Jan.
Okay.
And this was in 2019, by the way,
Okay.
second week of Jan, and then I attended the interview, and I got my result in about 3 weeks from there. So that was sometime in mid-Feb. And yeah, I got a confirmation. I got my offer letter, and I had joined the program in July. Actually, the program starts in August, but for the non-Mandarin speakers, there was a small, about a 3-week pre-Mandarin learning course, which started in the second week of July. So I had actually attended that for about 3 to 4 weeks. But that being said, I must say language is not really a barrier in Hong Kong or at HKUST. It was just, kind of getting accustomed with the university and just learning some basics of the language. That's just about it. So that is the timeline in terms of, from the application to the joining stage. And yeah, in terms of journey, well, what do I say? It's been a pretty Hmm. up and down journey, I must say, because I set my foot in Hong Kong, and then there were widespread protests that had started, and then the Corona situation. So, well, the first 4 to 5 months of the journey was pretty great. We had uninterrupted face-to-face classes, a lot of interactions, a lot of meetings, and a lot of that. But somewhere, from December when the whole epidemic broke out, it was not the same. But I must say, the college was, I think we were one of the first B schools to actually completely shut down the face-to-face and physical interactions in the classrooms, and we had completely transformed to the online mode. This was in about, I think, mid Jan. So, but I think the university did a great job of moving to the online platform, and I must say it was a pretty hassle-free experience, and it was actually great. One thing I realized, Srikala, is that online, a lot of people, who never used to interact in classroom, who never used to really, speak up in classroom, actually started doing that online. And I felt about 1 month into the courses, even the professors got really, comfortable with the online platform. There was a much more enriching discussion, a much more enriching interaction online than in the face-to-face classroom. But that being said, I would still say MBA is not just about your academics or your learning or your subjects. It's about the network, right? It's about meeting a lot of people. It's about interacting with different people, interacting with people from the industry and all of that. So as much as the online experience was pretty good, I would still say, I do miss the face-to-face classes, but yeah, it is what it is. So I must say it was a pretty good journey. The first 5 months was really good in the classrooms, and the latter 5 months was also equally good online. And HKUST has pretty much reached my expectations, and in some areas, in terms of the professors, the quality of the professors, the quality of teaching, it has exceeded my expectations, I must say.
Right. So all schools have different kind of methodology of teaching, right? Some
Right.
say group based or case based methodology, or they talk about experience with the industry. How is it in HKUST? How have they planned out their entire course structure?
Good question. So a lot of our professors are they have their education base in the US and Europe, but they have settled down in this part of the world for over 25 to 30 years now.
Okay.
Most of them are industry veterans who worked in, like, some of the big companies out there in the world. And yes, definitely it's a case-based method. A lot of our interaction, a lot of our coursework and teaching happens in the form of cases. We have a lot of our own cases, the HKUST own cases, and also from some of the reputed schools in the US and Europe. So yeah, pretty much a case-based discussion for most of the subjects, and a lot of industry knowledge as well, because a lot of these professors have worked for over 30-35 years in the industry, and then they've come here, some of them as adjunct professors, but some of them as full-time professors. So they bring in a lot of industry knowledge into the subject as well, a lot of practical knowledge. So I think that is what is the most enriching part of the teaching and learning.
Right. What is the diversity of the class in terms of, people from different nationalities? You said that it's already a very small cohort.
Right.
What is the diversity in terms of percentage of, Indians or, people
Right.
from all over the world?
Right. So our cohort, we have 96 of us at the moment in our batch, and around 12 to 13% are 30 to 35% of them are from the mainland China,
Okay.
and about 15 to 20% from the US, and the remaining from other nationalities, Europe, Africa, and etc.
Okay. Okay. In terms of the acceptance rate, would you have any idea? Like, what is the acceptance rate in terms of the people applying to people getting accepted?
That would be around 1 is to 20, 1 is to 25.
Okay. Okay. That's okay. Okay. So, in terms of how does the school help students network, get internships? So, did you get a chance on some internships while you were, or maybe doing online? Did that happen in your journey?
Not exactly online. In fact, I've actually been in touch with. So I did manage to land an internship with Monitor Deloitte recently. So that happened because I was in touch with one of my earlier colleagues who knows someone in Deloitte. So I've been in touch with this person for about 7 to 8 months now, and it is through this person that it actually happened. But that being said, I must say HKUST offers some really great resources in terms of the networking opportunities, or the campus space. Of course, now I'm not denying the fact that it's kind of difficult with this whole situation, campus placements. There's been a mild disruption, yes, but all of that has been taken online, and though there's been a slight disruption in the months of Feb and March, now it's back to normalcy. In fact, a lot of my friends have managed to land some internship offers or full-time offers online.
Mm.
So yeah, HKUST offers some great resource in terms of the alumni interactions and interactions with a lot of industry people. We have almost regular weekly meeting or weekly conferences or weekly meetings or coffee chats with people from the industry or some alums from HKUST who are in really good positions in good companies out there. And yep, that's about it.
Okay. So, how important is knowing Mandarin over there? Like, does it really matter? Because Hong Kong being quite cosmopolitan in terms of the kind of companies and people working from all around the world working there. How
Right.
important is knowing Mandarin, especially when you're a student, and also to get a job in Hong Kong, if that is something that is a possibility.
I would say a little bit of it would help, the basics. But as you rightly pointed out, Hong Kong is a cosmopolitan place, and with you've got a lot of people here speaking English and really good English, and that definitely is not a problem. Language is not a barrier. Of course, there are some niche roles, some client-facing roles where the clients are from the mainland, from China, where the businesses are flowing in from China, and for such kind of roles, but Mandarin or Cantonese knowing would be very helpful. But that is, again, a very small percentage of the roles that are out there. I would say that's just about 5 to 8% of the roles that are out there in the job market. So yes, a little bit of it would help, which is why they have the pre-Mandarin session before the academic year starts in July, as I mentioned earlier. But you can students can definitely make do without knowing it well.
Okay, okay, cool. So, with all this chaos that was happening all around the world, you still managed to get into Monitor Deloitte. So, what kind of role have you, if you could just tell us a little bit more about that experience? And, I understand that you leverage your own network to get this role. So, if you could just tell us a little bit more around that aspect also.
Definitely. So about the role, it's again with so Monitor Deloitte. Monitor is the strategy consulting arm of Deloitte. It sits under the branch of Deloitte. It's called as the S&O operation. It's called strategy and operations. So
Mm.
I'm here as with Monitor as an intern, working with their strategy consulting arm. Pretty much, work is pretty much similar to what I was doing earlier with EY. Um, and yeah, I did leverage my own contacts, but also some of the HKUST resources actually helped me out in terms of the case preparation, the interview preparations, and all of that. So as I said, I was in touch with one of my ex-colleagues, who knows someone in Monitor, and I've been in touch with this person for over 7 to 8 months now. And I'd send my CV, and they liked my CV, and then happened 2 rounds of interview. One was the fit round, and one was the case practice round, which is the most important aspect of any consulting interview. And yep, that's how I landed the offer.
Okay. So, was there, in terms of your perspective, so have you started your internship now?
Yeah, I did. It's been about a week now.
Okay. So from the, how has MBA changed your perspective towards the way you look at things now? Do you think, I mean, I know it might be too soon because you've just started your internship, but even then, do you think there is a change in terms of your perspective and, the way you look at problems or your entire perspective towards, the kind of projects you would handle or, the kind of role you have right now?
That's a good question. It definitely did. Yeah, it's just been about a week now, so nothing much that I can comment on. The internship or the project that I'm working on. But one thing I can definitely say is, my MBA experience has given me, now I can actually see at a project or a business, or if you're formulating a strategy from a holistic perspective, right? So earlier, I kind of used to deep down on just one aspect, or, just the aspect that I was supposed to work on, right? So I never really had the understanding of the overall, not the overall business, I would say, but yeah, a very limited understanding, I would say. But with this whole MBA journey, with the sort of academic learning that I've gained in the last 9 to 10 months, today I'm in a position to, see at a project very differently, to kind of get a 30,000 feet level view of it, see, understand different aspects of it, how every aspect works in harmony with the other, how an impact in one area of the strategy formulation or one area of the project will actually have cascading effects on the other, right?
Right.
So these were the different aspects that my courses and my elective subjects in the MBA helped me understand.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So, is there any pre-work that you did before you started your internship, or how did that go?
Not before the internship, but before the interview, case practice. Tons and tons of case practice. That is the mantra to crack any consulting interview, because it all boils down to the case practice. The case interview holds about 70% of the weightage,
Okay,
and 30% is for the fit round.
okay.
So I would suggest, my recommendation would be to all the future students or future aspiring candidates for the consulting practice would be to do as much case practice as possible.
Awesome, awesome. So cool. So I think we've covered most of our questions, that we had around your profile. So what we could do now is we could take questions
Sure.
from students who are listening to us. So, Rachel, what you could do is if there are any questions from the YouTube live, maybe you could, copy paste on the chat window. Otherwise, we will look at the questions which are there on the Q&A window. So I have one question. It says, how would you view the overall curriculum given by HKUST in a 1-year program? That's what I understood by a short-term program with an internship. Are academic and internship aspects balanced in the overall program delivery?
So let me answer the second part of the question first. Definitely, the academic and internship aspects are balanced. It's a mandatory that we do a summer internship for 2 to 3 months, and it actually holds certain weightage in the overall credits that we gain. So the practical internship experience is a very important component of the overall academic profile. And what was the first question again?
It was about, okay, let me just reread that. How does it manage the internship and academic internship? That's the same,
Okay.
because it says more on the duration of the program. Since it's a 1 year program, how does that help?
I'm sorry, I didn't get it again.
So it says that since it's a short-term program, how do they balance the academic and the internship part of it?
All right. Okay. It's so okay. HKUST offers two modules of learning. One is a 12-month program for people who are slightly in the higher positions, who come from higher positions, who are already managers or senior managers. So that's the 12-month module would cater to such kind of people, and for the relatively low ones, the people like me who came as analysts and associates, there's a 16-month module, right? So the 16-month module would offer an entire 12-month academic learning plus a 3-month internship. And see, I think the one thing I realized, by talking to a lot of people of late, at least the last 2 to 3 years, is the whole 2-year MBA program is actually kind of losing its sheen. If you actually see, there's a dip in the application for the 2-year MBA program all over the world in most of the business schools. People want more of a mix and match sort of a game and a relatively shorter duration of the MBA program. So I think that is where the HKUST's MBA program really plays well, because you know what you really want. You want to focus on just 2 to 3 aspects of your post MBA thing. It could be consulting, strategy, marketing, whatever. So that way, you can kind of mix and match the subjects that you're really interested in, you want to really learn. Do that in the 12-month period and get a sufficient or a relevant internship experience.
Right, right. Awesome. So I'll just quickly scroll through the questions on the Q&A. So there's one question which says, how do you find the values a school look for? And all schools mention integrity and some other things. These are things that you can find on the school's websites, basically, and maybe talking to alums, as
Absolutely.
I suggested.
Whoever rightly pointed out, because every business school out there, every website out there talks about integrity and a lot of these generic things. You will get to know only the finer and the niche aspects by reaching out to the alums, by talking to people who are currently pursuing the program.
Yes. There's another question. If we apply to the university this year and get rejected, can we apply to the same university next year? Yes, you
Yes.
can. You will just be taken as a reapplicant. So you will also have to put in reasons of why you're reapplying
We
and
apply.
what is the difference between your application last year to this year. Cool. So, okay, I'll just go through. So did you consider learning Mandarin, as it's an international component in the South Asian market? And pre-university, did you consider that, is one question.
Not really. It's not a very important component because, as I said, you have businesses flowing into Hong Kong from a lot of other countries, not just from Hong Kong or from the mainland. You have clients from Singapore, Vietnam, India, Philippines, Thailand, etc., etc. Right? So there, I don't really think Mandarin is gonna play a very important aspect. As I said earlier, yes, learning the basics would help you, but it's definitely not a huge barrier.
Right. There's one very interesting question. So the says, did the uncertainty in Hong Kong in terms of pro-democracy protest ever deter you from the spirit of applying there or studying there?
Not really, because by the time I'd received my offer letter, these protests never really gained traction. So it was only just before I actually, set my foot in Hong Kong that it started. But none of us had expected that it would, kind of pan out to this magnitude, to this extent. But yeah, I think we've all managed to survive.
Right. In terms of GMAT, what is the average score of the students over there? And, is there a range, or what is your suggestion, especially for applying to top schools like HKUST? What is your suggestion as, what should be they focusing on in terms of their GMAT score?
Sure. So the HKUST's range is around 690 to 720, 730.
Mm.
And my suggestion would be look at nothing less than 720 or a 730. That would be my only suggestion. I mean, just always aim high.
Right, right.
Yeah,
In fact, a GMAT score definitely improves your probability or increases your probability of getting an admit. So,
definitely.
definitely, a
Yeah.
higher the score, the better.
Higher the score, the better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, just because the website or the college says the median is a 690 or a 700, or the range starts from anything less than a 700, don't just settle down for that. Always aim high. Try to because especially what's happening is world over, the number of Indian applicants applications are actually increasing, the applicants are increasing, the percentage is actually increasing.
Right.
With that, I think the median or the mean score for the Indian applicants is growing year on year. So when I first took GMAT in 2017, the median for the Indian applicants was around 700, 710. But now I understand it's around 730 to 740 for most of the top B schools.
Right.
So settle for nothing less than that.
Right. In terms of the number of classes, the duration of classes every week, how was that spanned out? Somebody has asked that question too. So, uh, every day, how many classes did you have, and how was that spanned out?
Sure. So it doesn't depend on number of days in a week. So we used to have a set core course, set number of core courses every semester. So it would be around five in the fall semester, four in the spring semester. And after that, it all depends on how many electives you take. So you could end up taking three or four electives in a particular semester, and all the three, subjects could be on the same day, right? And you could probably be free for the remaining 6 days in a week. So it all boils down to what electives you're taking and what on what days do they fall.
Right, right.
Yeah.
There's another very interesting question. Will an MBA from China be perceived differently from after COVID? Uh, what's your thoughts?
Um, Good question. Interesting question. I well different. Um, Look, I'd say as much as people keep talking that the way the world is going to see China would change post COVID, I don't really think so, because for two reasons. One, the kind of the economic drivers they have, the activity drivers they have. It's a tremendous amount of economic activity that is happening and that is concentrated in China. And two, the kind of supply chains they've built, the kind of the control they have over the global supply chain, the global economy. So as long, and I honestly feel that is not really going to change, because somewhere I was actually reading a report a couple of days back that said as much as people talk outside that it's going to change, internally when a lot of the companies were actually surveyed, close to 75% of them said that we're not really going to change our base from China, we're not going to move anywhere else. So the people are going to stay there. The market is going to stay there, the economy is going to be concentrated in that country. So to that end, I feel taking up an MBA over there would kind of play in your favor, I would say. Although, there's a lot of other barriers, especially the language barrier,
Hmm.
because, in China, you would definitely be required to learn a lot of Cantonese and Mandarin, which is not really the case with Hong Kong. So I think to answer that question, um, I feel to an extent it would actually play in the candidate's favor if he were to pursue an MBA from China. But of course, it all boils down to the college. It should be from a good college, good
Right,
university.
right. I have another question over here which says, do we need to be in a managerial role for selection in a B school? As I'm a senior associate with 5.5 years experience, how should I make my profile strong?
Well, if you already have 9.5 years of managerial
Five
experience,
and a half, 5.5.
5.5 is still good. 5.5 years of managerial experience with at least a 720, 730 GMAT score, that itself is a great profile, I would say. No, definitely not, because I've never held any managerial positions before joining a B school. So it all boils down to how you're projecting your candidacy, how what is the kind of work you've done earlier, how well you write your essays. As I said, what is the kind of different aspects of your personality that you're trying to project in the essays. It just boils down to that.
Absolutely. So, very important point here I would want to talk about is what you say is what other people will hear. Right. So, it is very important that you articulate what you're doing very well, highlight your clarity on what you want to do as part of your, MBA plan or what you want to do next. And obviously, have the other checklists in terms of your GMAT score in place and, write your essays well. All those things will be equally important. Right. So I will just take just does HKUST have any international collaboration with other universities around the world? Do you have any
They
exchange
do. We
program?
so we traditionally have an exchange program which unfortunately got disrupted this year because of
Yeah.
the external situation. But HKUST has collaboration with over 65 universities across the world.
Hmm.
A lot of the top B schools such as Kellogg, Stanford, Dartmouth, Haas Berkeley in the US. And if you were to look at Europe, HEC Paris, ESAD, IESE, and NUS, and some other B schools in China as well. So yeah, we do have a pretty great collaboration. In fact, our batch, a lot of us were supposed to embark on our exchange program, but unfortunately, with the entire ongoing situation, that got cancelled this year.
Mhm. There's another question on the job market across the globe. I think we've already touched on this a little bit. Maybe just some thoughts, Sai, if you could just add to it.
Sure. I'm sure you guys must have been reading, you guys must have been following. We are looking at either a V or a U-shaped kind of a recovery. Uh, Definitely 1 to 2 years from now, there's going to be a great recovery and the job market will bounce back to normalcy. And now, yes, in this year, 2020, and at least for the next 6 to 8 months, I really don't see a very rosy and a peachy situation out there. But and which is why I feel now is a time to kind of invest in a program like MBA, gain your knowledge, and come out sometime in the end of 2021 or 22. And I'm sure the job market will be back to normalcy.
Right, absolutely. How is the visa thing, like work visa thing, happen in Hong Kong? Is it like a 1 year visa or the 2 year
Yeah.
visa? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have something called as the IANG visa. So you get that right after the program ends. So that is for a 1 year duration that will be sponsored by the university themselves. So in that 1 year period, you can go out in the market, search for job opportunities. So that's basically a window for you to kind of search for opportunities and land in a job. Once you get a job, it's a completely different process. You get a totally different visa, which is the work visa.
And that work visa has to be sponsored by the company that is
That will
there.
be sponsored by the company. But yeah, initially, right after your program ends, you get a IANG. It's called as the IANG visa. You can read about it online. It would be given for about 1 year.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. I think, okay, so there's one more question which I think is relevant and interesting too. In terms of your outgoing class, right? So people who have graduated already, what are the kind of, do they get jobs across the globe, or, if you have to kind of map which countries they actually go and work in, how does that work? Or how has that been for the outgoing class?
Is it specific to my batch or in general?
No, the batch, the outgoing batch, so the one before that.
The one before that, I think we've had, so they had about 110 students, and of that, close to 40-45% of them are in, the US, Europe, India, Singapore. So there's quite a few opportunities, when the campus placements happen, they actually recruit you for roles not just in Hong Kong or, in this part of the world, but also for, the US, Europe. So about 40 to 45% of them actually do, move out from the Hong Kong market and are placed across the globe.
And
And the
how
remaining 50% of them, it's their choice to stay here in this part of the world, in Hong Kong and in mainland. So they choose to stay back here.
okay, and how has it been for your batch?
My batch, honestly, there is a slight dip, absolutely no dip in terms of the internship opportunities or the full-time opportunities that we are getting. But in terms of moving away from Hong Kong or going to other geographies, there's definitely been a dip. I would say the 40% number has come down to 20 to 25, but around 95% of the cohort has already managed to either land internships or full-time job opportunities.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. So I guess I covered most of the questions. So guys, if you have any more questions, you can just, I have a one, if I can take another couple of questions if you have. Otherwise, I think I've covered most of the questions that were asked on the chat window and on the Q&A window. Thank you so much, Rikar,
No problem.
for
My
your
pleasure,
time. And
Srikala. If there's anything, they can always reach out to me on LinkedIn or feel free to just take my contact details from Srikala and just buzz me anytime.
absolutely. And for all of you, if you are looking at any kind of help with respect to your profile, or if you want to get a free profile evaluation done, my colleague Rachel has just put out a link. She'll just put a link on the chat window on YouTube, as well as on the Zoom chat. So please go ahead and fill up this form. You can avail a 30-minute free profile evaluation from us, and we can plan this out for you over the week. And we would love to help you with your MBA journey. Thank you so much, Rikar.
Thank you very much, Srikala.
It's been
Thank
awesome
you.
as
Thanks a lot. My
always,
pleasure.
and
Uh, hope
it was a great,
the session
very
was some
informative.
help to the candidates out there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you for listening to us, and looking forward to reaching out to you guys to help you with your applications too. Cool. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Shikar. Thanks.